Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
Vince Coglianese.
Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 5:06 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, Mark Morgan joins us, the former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. We'll check in with him on how Springfield, Ohio's plight came into existence, what he thinks of all of it, and the media's dishonest treatment of that whole saga. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Well, in case you're wondering how long it would take before the left started blaming Trump for someone attempting to kill him, well, no time at all is the answer. No time at all. The Cincinnati Enquirer published an opinion piece this morning, headlined, "There is no place in politics for violence. That said, the former president, Donald Trump, brings a lot of this stuff on himself." That's the Cincinnati Enquirer saying all of this. Also today, the Washington Post's Carol Leonnig is a reporter, and she's just posted in the last hour. Exclusive, Secret Service showed a new president, Donald Trump, how photographers could shoot long-range pictures of him while he golfed at his Virginia club, and warned an assassin could kill him the same way. But Trump has insisted that his clubs were safe and kept playing. How Trump's golf habit at his semi-public courses has put his life at risk for many years. How Trump's golf habit has put his life at risk, the Washington Post says. You see, the skirt he was wearing was too short. He had it coming, is the position that the left is taking today. You shouldn't be golfing. How about we protect the guy? How about that? How about the failure to protect him should be right up there front and center? Or exploring the motivations of the guy who tried to kill him. Maybe that would be a good use of your time. Speaking of that guy and his relationship to the press, have you seen the number of news outlets that he's done interviews with? He's talked to them for years. He's a full-blown Ukrainiac, by the way. This guy is trying to recruit people from the whole planet to go and fight in Ukraine against Russia. There's all sorts of video of him saying this because he's interviewed by everyone. Let's see. Who's he been interviewed by? He's been interviewed by, in 2022, he was interviewed by Newsweek. In April of 2022, he was interviewed by AFP TV. In March of 2023, he was interviewed by the New York Times. In March of 2023, he was interviewed by Semaphore. He was featured in an Azov battalion propaganda video in May of 2022. This is the Nazi battalion in Ukraine. Yeah, this guy's everywhere. CBS today added their voice to the chorus of news outlets who talked to him. And they were treating him like some kind of expert on Ukraine and recruiting people to go fight, to be involved in the war. He is an insane person. And the media kept relying on him for his expertise on that insanity, apparently. He's also very anti-Trump, in case you were wondering. He's got the usual stuff at his house in Hawaii. Must be nice. He's got a pickup truck. And on his pickup truck, he's got a bumper sticker, journalists nearby capturing this, a Biden-Harris bumper sticker on the back of his truck. There's really no mystery about who he's supporting in this election. How does he feel? He's still alive. How does he feel about Kamala taking over for Biden? Does he have complicated thoughts on that? He's on board with them. Also, he used one of the left's, and specifically the Biden-Harris administration's favorite phrases, democracy is on the ballot. That was this year. In April of this year, Ryan Routh tweeted the following. He said, at POTUS, that would be Joe Biden, your campaign should be called something like KADAF, Keep America Democratic and Free. Trump's should be called MASA, M-A-S-A, Make Americans Slaves Again, Master. That's what he wrote. And then he said, democracy is on the ballot, and we cannot lose. We cannot afford to fail. The world is counting on us to show the way. Does he not sound like an MSNBC contributor? You know what I mean? What if it comes out that they were paying him to be a contributor, or at least do like some of their writing? He was a writer on one of the shows. And that does seem like the kind of likely place it could be, given that we have seen a ton of this. For instance, this is audio of Dan Goldman, the congressman from New York, the Levi Strauss heir, on MSNBC with former White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki, saying of Trump that he needs to be, quote, eliminated.
It's just unquestionable at this point that man cannot see public office again. He is not only unfit, he is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
He has to be eliminated. He has to be eliminated. Do you hear anybody on the right talk like this? Anybody? Nobody. I mean, there are all sorts of people on the right who are very concerned about the direction of this country, and they think that desperately that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should not have a wield on power anymore. Desperately. Eliminated? There's Dan Goldman, a member of Congress, saying that. My buddy Greg Reed points out that he's a Democrat who literally is on the committee that has oversight of the Secret Service. Dan Goldman is. Also, Goldman, not the last to sound like this on Jen Psaki's television show. In fact, just this weekend, Texas Democrat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett was referring to Donald Trump and his supporters as one of the domestic enemies that members of Congress were sworn to fight against.
I talk about the fact that when we swore in finally in January, that we swore to defend against those that are coming against us, whether they are domestic or international. And right now, I feel like MAGA in general, they are threats to us domestically.
This is a sitting member of Congress. She says MAGA in general, that would be the basically half the country. Half the country is a threat to the domestic well-being of the rest of us. That's her position.
And we see it time and time again. And I think that's why you see so many national leaders, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, coming together to say there is only one person qualified to be the commander-in-chief, and that is Kamala.
Okay, there's only one person. And it's Kamala Harris of all the people that it could possibly be. But here you have Jasmine Crockett carrying on the tradition of the Jen Psaki television show of saying the most hysterical, over-the-top things about Donald Trump and his many, many millions of supporters. They are the domestic threat our founders warned us about, is what she's saying. It's totally insane. Totally insane. But that's par for the course. Now, President Trump and his campaign today, they have put out a massive list of statements like the ones you just heard. They've decided, it's really important that people realize where the rhetoric is right now. Really important. So I'll just read a couple of them to you here. The headline on their press release today on this subject, they say Democrats' rhetoric inspired another attempt on President Trump's life. And they begin by quoting Kamala Harris. They say repeatedly, quote, Trump is a threat to our democracy and fundamental freedoms. Another one from Kamala. It's on us to recognize the threat Trump poses. Another. Does one of us have to come out alive? Ha, ha, ha. Joe Biden. It's time to put Trump in a bullseye. Biden. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Trump is a threat to this nation. Biden. There is one existential threat. It's Donald Trump. Biden. Trump is a genuine threat to this nation. He's literally a threat to everything America stands for. Biden. Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Biden. Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic, and that is a threat to this country. Tim Walz. Are Republicans a threat to democracy? Yes. Are they going to put people's lives in danger? Yes. Gwen Walz. Bye-bye, Donald Trump. That was her this weekend, gesticulating wildly. Nancy Pelosi. Trump is a threat to our democracy of the kind that we have not seen. Let's see. I already told you about Jasmine Crockett and Dan Goldman. Liz Cheney, top Harris surrogate. Quote, Trump presents a fundamental threat to the republic, and we are seeing it on a daily basis. Where do you think all of this leads? Where do you think all of this leads? Oh, let's see. The guy who just who wanted to take a shot at President Trump, who was lined up in the tree line at the golf course, he posted in April, democracy is on the ballot. And that's why he said he was supporting Joe Biden over Donald Trump. It may not also come as a surprise to you that he's a Biden donor, Democrat donor. He's given a ton of money to Act Blue. He's a regular donor to the Democrat Political Action Committee, Act Blue, trying to support the election of Democrats. Now, it's not, I don't know what kind of money this guy has. He made 19 donations between September of 2019 and March of 2020, totaling $131. But he just keeps on making all these donations. In case you're wondering, is there any evidence of where his political loyalties lie? I don't know. He coughed up $131 to Democrats. He went on Twitter and he posted that democracy's on the ballot, how Trump can't be reelected, that Trump would enslave us, he said. And this is why he wants to keep America democratic by supporting Joe Biden in his campaign. Those are just the things that he said. Amazingly, I was watching this morning. I flipped over to Morning Joe to see how they were covering all this. Do you remember last time there was a Trump assassination attempt? Morning Joe was not allowed on the air. Do you remember that? That was July 13th. July 13th, Butler, Pennsylvania. That's a Saturday. President Trump is shot in the head. And that Monday, Morning Joe is not on the air because MSNBC doesn't want to run the risk of putting them on the air for fear of what they will say in a moment where they need to be walking on eggshells, given the kind of rhetoric that's expressed on that network and on that show. I checked, and this morning they were on the air. They did have them on the air. I guess you need to wound Trump in order to not appear on a Monday show at MSNBC. But they go on the air this morning, and all of their experts, their reporters, everyone's like, well, we just don't really know his motivations. At one point he said he supported Trump. In the social media post for this guy, apparently in 2016, he expressed regret that he had once thought that he supported Trump in 2016. Okay, so what does that tell us? What does it tell us about his politics now? Well, luckily we have tweets. I can look at this April tweet where he says he loves Biden and hates Trump and thinks democracy's on the ballot, in his words, in the White House's words. That's what he's saying in April. How come MSNBC wasn't telling you about that? They were tugging on their chins this morning. You're like, his political motivations, very, very all over the place, just so hard to tell. Can you imagine them doing that with anybody who did even something slightly conservative? Like they found evidence that he had held the door open for a woman. Well, he's obviously a right-wing radical. Like, he's clearly, all indications demonstrate to us that this guy is a crazy right-winger. He held the door open for a woman. No, but if you go on Twitter and you say that democracy's on the ballot, you support Joe Biden, and Donald Trump can't be president of the United States, well, it's just hard to tell where he is politically. And plus, finally, just the most obvious thing, he was trying to shoot Donald Trump. In case you were wondering, is he a Trump supporter? No. I think it's pretty obvious. How much more evidence do you need? No is the answer. The same thing with the Thomas Crooks guy, the guy who actually shot Trump in the head. No. He shot Trump. Why would he be a Trump supporter? That doesn't even make any sense. But they say it anyway in the hopes that people will become too distracted to demand the answers that they deserve. It's 5:20 now. WMAL traffic and weather. Ed Rodriguez is in the Hadid Carpet.
WMAL, making sense of the economy because it's your money and your retirement. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
All right, let's go to the phones. I got Mike calling in from Sunshine, Maryland, line 1. Hello, Mike. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show, sir.
Vince, thanks for taking my call once again. It pains me to say this. I'm not happy to say this, but I don't think Mr. Routh is going to live into old age. I think he knew which of the three golf courses Donald Trump was going to be playing, and somebody told him. And I think that he may not be with us for very much longer,
hey,
whether it be Jeff. Yep.
One second. Let me just emphasize something you just said. I didn't realize this instinctively. There are three courses there?
I believe there are. There's one in Jupiter. There was the one he was playing, and then there's Doral.
Okay, all of Trump's courses. Okay, I see. I see, but not.
And they're all within a half hour. They're all within a half hour of each other.
Okay,
I believe.
Okay,
yeah.
Gotcha. All right, and then I'm sorry, and then finish the point you were trying to make just a moment ago.
My point is that he was somehow informed of which course Trump was playing, and whoever spoke to him, I think that he's whether it be Epstein or Rubied, I'm concerned for Mr. Ralph.
Yeah, we need to keep the Jack Rubies away from this guy. In other words, this is that's such an interesting and smart point. Clearly, somehow he knows to be in the woods there. Somehow he gets there early enough that I guess he's in advance of whatever other screening they may have done. It's crazy that this is happening, and it leads the local sheriff, Mike. I played audio from one of the local sheriffs, I think Martin County Sheriff, earlier saying, I mean, if it's just one guy, great, the threat's gone, we have him in custody. But you wonder, how does he get in there? How does a guy get in there to that position with a clear line of sight? Eventually, should Donald Trump have walked up that course a little bit more, he's staring right at Trump with a rifle with a scope on it, and he can take him out. He's got a GoPro ready to capture the carnage. And that sheriff said, you start asking questions here about what kind of conspiracy went into this. So, Mike, that I don't know about you, Mike, but I don't have a lot of trust for anybody who's involved here. Do you?
I don't. And, I think Bongino mentioned when he covered Obama playing golf, they would close the street. Yeah. They would cover the street and make sure that any hole that came within, 300-400 yards, that street would be closed. And that's not what's happening with Donald Trump. No. And that needs to be explained.
Yeah, and all these guys need to be fired. I mean, you want to give us confidence? If you really cared about this, fire everybody at the top. Fire all of them and replace them today. Replace them today. In fact, you have a bipartisan commission that comes together and says, these are the people. These are the only ones who can do this right now. Because I don't care if this is incompetence or outright corruption, a plot to kill the president. Whatever it is, we need new people at the top to give us confidence that we can fix this. Fire these people. It keeps happening. Sorry, you lose. If a Navy captain if his boat goes ashore, guess what happens? He's gone. He's gone. Find somebody else. Okay. Stay with us. Coming up on the program, Mark Morgan, the former acting commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, just moments away.
News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 5:36. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. A lot of breaking news we're going through, including a second very public assassination attempt on President Trump, as well as the chaos that's going on in cities all across the country who've had foreign nationals dumped onto their towns, namely Springfield, Ohio. I want to talk about all of it with my next guest. Mark Morgan joins us now. He's a former acting commissioner of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency, and he's also a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Mark, always good to talk to you, sir.
Vince, thanks for having me. Good to be back.
I want to get your first reactions here to the fact that now we're watching yet again as President Trump was able to make it out alive of yet another assassination attempt. When you saw all of this go down, and knowing what you know now, what are the big thoughts that you're having on this?
First, my first reaction, it's another colossal failure for the United States Secret Service, Vince. But I want to be very careful. When I say colossal failure, I mean at the leadership level of the Secret Service, not the rank and file. And I think that's a very important distinction. But, I heard the acting Secret Service director in the press conference just a few minutes ago, and I was shocked. Once again, he comes across as this indignant approach. How dare you question the Secret Service agents? I mean, he literally was going through and said that they should be applauded for what they did. I mean, that's not the point. Yes, a Secret Service agent did an incredible job. I mean, really, almost a divine intervention that I would say for him, that he was able to spot a black barrel about an inch in diameter sticking through a back fence, black chain link fence from a ways away. That's an impossible observation, but he did it and then engaged. And that's all great. But the issue is, How did he get there? How was he able to go there? Right now, they're reporting that he was there for up to 12 hours. The issue is he should have never been in that position, and that is a colossal failure. There was an intentional decision not to do a couple of things, not to sweep the line, not to put people there to prevent somebody from coming there. And they look, one last thing, and I'll stop. I know I'm going on here because I'm frustrated, because they also talk about this OTR. It's called
Off the record.
OTR is for other, right? Not on the record, right?
Yeah.
Other than a record, a movement. And so they're using it as an excuse is that no, there's nothing more they could have done. That's just not true. This isn't like he was in a motorcade and he asked him to stop for pizza in the Bronx, New York. This is a golf course that he's been there hundreds of times, that he's visited over the past decade, that the Secret Service knows very well. They know every single vulnerable aspect there. They couldn't have swept the most vulnerable aspects between holes 5 and 6. Of course they could have. This is, again, a colossal failure of the leadership of the Secret Service.
In the aftermath, we've learned a lot. So far, I mean, we don't know everything. We need to know a lot more. But one of the things we've learned is he was there for 12 hours. He was in the woods for 12 hours. And the reason we know that is because his cell phone kept pinging the tower from that position. And at the conclusion of that 12 hours, after a Secret Service agent fired upon him, he ran out of the woods and he jumped into a getaway car. He got into his vehicle, a black Nissan, and he drove away. And I've been wondering the whole time, was a black Nissan SUV parked next to the Donald Trump golf course for the entire 12 hours and nobody saw it?
Again, Vince, all great points. And it goes to exactly what I'm saying. You know, the acting Secret Service director talks about, we have this layered approach and it worked. No, it didn't. The agent's observation is actually what we would refer to as the last line of defense in that layered approach, right? He's moving forward and sees it. If you truly are implementing an effective layered approach, you would have swept the area. You would have seen him in the fence line. You would have observed the car like you're talking about. You would have put just a couple of agents or officers on that road to prevent somebody from accessing that area. This was not an effective layered approach, but there was a decision made somewhere in leadership that said, nope, we're going to go with the push forward approach. We're not going to sweep that.
Yeah.
We're not going to have eyes on that road, even though we know it's a vulnerable area. We know that somebody is sitting in that area between holes 5 and 6 would have a clean line of the president. Look, this is, you cannot tell me, and put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig at the end of the day. And again, I am not talking about the rank and file. They did a great job. I'm talking about the leadership. And Vince, to your point, look, one of the reasons why we're talking about the suspect is because a civilian out of the blue had the wherewithal to say, hey, that doesn't look right. Were those shots I heard? Yeah. And he took pictures of the suspect and the car, got it to law enforcement. If that hadn't happened, Vince, we wouldn't be talking about the suspect. We'd be talking about conducting America's largest manhunt right now and what the status of that was.
I noticed, by the way, that that's a theme because in Butler, Pennsylvania, it was the civilians who called law enforcement's attention to the fact that there was a man on a roof with a gun looking to take out President Trump, and so it seems to be that it's often just everyday Americans who have come out in the best way in so many of these stories. I do want to dwell on something that you said, though, and I understand why you're saying it, because there are rank and file Secret Service agents who did their jobs in the vicinity of President Trump. That's true, but it feels a little early to say that all of the rank and files guys did their jobs. Meaning, shouldn't there have been a rank and file search of the perimeter? Shouldn't there have been any number of agents who did other things to prevent it from getting that far? And obviously, that does go to a leadership failure. And for Ronald Rowe to get up today and say, well, the Secret Service did its job and we deserve credit for this, I think I agree with you. I think that's preposterous. But until we get new leadership at the Secret Service and a complete exposition on how it is that they're actually doing their jobs and whether it's worth the American people paying for it, I feel like it's a little early to say that everybody's doing their jobs.
Well, first of all, preposterous. I wrote that down. I'm going to steal that line. I think that's the best way to describe what the acting Secret Service director is saying about how great this operation was, because it wasn't. It was another colossal failure, and that's what he should have started with. But as far as the rank and file and leadership, I understand the hesitation, not disagreeing with you. But what I would say is the decision to actually sweep, the decision to call local law enforcement to see if they can post a couple of black and whites there, that's a leadership decision, right? Those decisions aren't made by the rank and file. Those are made by leadership. Now, that may trickle down to a lower level leadership, but it's still a leadership decision. And to your point, the methodology. Here's one of the fundamental problems of Secret Service, in my opinion, and the sheriff said it yesterday, is that that Trump's not the president. So that's why he didn't get the level of protection. And that's one of the fundamental flaws, in my opinion, of their protection methodology. They base it on a category methodology rather than a threat. It should be a threat-based, intelligence-driven, operationally focused methodology rather than a category. And what I mean by that is, look, President Trump, we know. So former president, GOP leading presidential candidate, one assassination attempt. We know Iran is trying to kill him, and he's probably one of the most recognizable people on the face of the planet. Those are threats. I don't give a crap if he's the president, sitting president or not. That should be irrelevant. His category, Vince, should be irrelevant. What is relevant is the threat level against his life, and that's the highest that we've ever seen. That's what should drive the protection level, not the category. And I still think mentally and culturally they're saddled by the category methodology.
Yeah, well, it's something is deeply wrong in that agency, and it keeps on demonstrating itself. I want to play some audio for you that'll help me segue to the next part of this, though. The way the media has reacted to all of this has been, as usual, characteristically abysmal. In fact, NBC's Lester Holt this weekend decided to segue out of coverage of the Trump assassination attempt to suggesting pretty obviously that it's kind of Trump's fault anyway. Take a listen to this.
Today's apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Ohio.
I don't know what kind of segue that is, other than suggesting outright that Donald Trump had it coming. What do you make of this rhetoric around Springfield, Ohio, and the way the media are treating it?
Well, first of all, I think you're right, Vince. I mean, literally, he wasn't tap dancing around it. He was literally saying that the reason why Trump was almost killed a second time, it's his fault that he's being shot at. I mean, to use your word, it's preposterous. And here's the issue with Springfield, Ohio. I think, and I understand it, but what I try to do is let's not get distracted with whether they're eating animals or not. And for my opinion, the evidence that I've seen, it actually does back up they were doing that. But let's not get distracted with that, right?
Well, let me just make a point. Let me just, Mark, if I can, let me just make one point about that. Would anybody be talking about this at the nationwide level were it not for that starter pack? No. No. That's the whole reason. The whole reason the country's talking about this is because President Trump called attention to what Springfield residents were saying about that subject.
Correct. And that's exactly right. And that's why, you know, I always follow the evidence, and that's why the fact checkers, you know, during the debate, they're wrong. President Trump was right. He's going off of what the citizens were actually saying. But here, and so I'm not trying to discount that. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm trying to say is what Springfield, Ohio represents, right? What Springfield, Ohio represents is what we should really be talking about. A small town of less than 60,000 that has been invaded with illegal aliens and increased their city by over 30%. They have devastated every aspect of their town's resources. Their medical resources are overwhelmed. Their public safety resources are overwhelmed. Their public assistance resources are overwhelmed. Yeah. Their education system is overwhelmed. Every imaginable, fathomable aspect of their services are overwhelmed. That's what we should be talking about. And we know that if it's happening in Springfield, Ohio, all the way to New York City, what Springfield, Ohio represent is what, Vince, I know you've been saying it for the past 3.5 years for sure, is that every town, city, and state is a border town, city, and state. The chaos and loss of the border, the drugs, the criminals, the national security threats, and the cost to taxpayers to the tune of $500 billion the last 4 years. All of that does not stay at the border. It's a transit through point, and all of that makes its way to every town, city, and state, and that's what Springfield, Ohio represents.
So Springfield, Ohio, one of the features of this saga in particular is kind of like the creative destruction of that city. because the Biden administration has consciously decided to allow these foreign nationals into the country under a parole status. They say you can come here. So what the defense they'll raise that you mentioned before, illegal aliens, but in this case they're saying, well, they're here legally because the Biden administration changed the rules about how you get into the country, quote, legally. Correct. And 20,000 people under that status have now descended on Springfield, Ohio. And one of the other worries I have here, Mark Morgan, is that it's local and state politicians who are aiding and abetting this as well, but kind of pretending like it's not their fault. And I look specifically at Governor Mike DeWine. I'm very concerned about the amount of money and charity interests that he has within Haiti and the role that he may have played in the sabotage of communities in his own state. I feel like we are at the beginning of unraveling a much bigger and very important story.
Vince, everything you said, I could have said better myself. You really need to take that 60 seconds, minute and a half, and publish that out, because everything you said is absolutely true and accurate. Let's real quick. Take the parole. You're absolutely right. It's a big shell game. What they've done is they've unlawfully used parole. Parole is supposed to be used on a case-by-case basis for a specific public benefit. That's not what they're doing now. They're just saying, hey, if you're born from this country, ali income free, and we're going to actually let you fly in to one of 45 airports or come through our ports of entry, and then we're going to call it a lawful pathway. It doesn't matter how many times they say it. It's a lie. It's not a lawful pathway, and it's a big shell game, and they're abusing the use of parole. And so, and the other big part of that, too, is they want to make it sound, well, okay, so if we use parole and we allow them to fly in or go through one of our ports of entry, well, then they must be okay. No, that's the other big lie. They have no ability to vet these people. It doesn't matter whether they illegally enter or whether they allow them through the unlawful use of parole. We are not able to vet these individuals.
Well,
we have no diplomatic relationship with Haiti.
An internal audit of that program just revealed, in the government, the Biden administration just revealed that it's rife with fraud. Yep. We have there are like 1,000 quote sponsors that have sponsored like 100,000 what are essentially illegal aliens into this country. They're using fake Social Security numbers. They're using addresses of empty warehouses for their home address. I could go on and on. But so that is bad enough. But part of the problem, though, is like an individual from Haiti or Venezuela. I don't care whether they illegally enter or they're flying them in through the use of the parole program or CBP-1 app. We have no diplomatic relationship with those countries. Yes. We literally have no idea who these individuals are, and we have no idea to vet whether they're a criminal, what their allegiance is. There's an old saying in the Border Patrol, Vince, before they let somebody go, they say, hey, make sure you like the name that you're going to give me, because that's going to be the name we're going to utilize as long as you're in the country. Yeah. I mean, obviously, it's facetious saying that we have no idea to absolutely verify who these people are. Finally, I'm concerned about the business interests in the state who may be undermining the citizens of Ohio. And the reason I raised Governor Mike DeWine is because he has a habit of doing this here. He received donations from Norfolk Southern, which colored his reaction to the train derailment and fire in his state in East Palestine. He also received donations from children's hospitals who perform these so-called sex change surgeries on kids, which led to him vetoing trans bills in the state. So excuse me if I'm a little skeptical about his reaction to Springfield, Ohio now, given his entanglements in Haiti.
Vince, again, this is why I love coming on the show. Again, I completely agree. And this is where the Democrats and Republicans share some accountability here, because the Chamber of Commerce, which oftentimes are in the back pocket of Republicans, right? They keep saying this false narrative. Again, it's a big lie, how we need more foreign-born workers in this country. What they're not honest with the American people about is that they don't make a distinction between those that are coming in lawfully to work and illegal aliens. What we don't need, Vince, are illegal aliens that are subverting the rule of law, our nation's sovereignty, and pulling resources off the line so the cartels can exploit and push drugs, criminals, national security threats through. Because what we find is that companies, U.S.-based companies, further exploit the migrants that that they say that they want to protect.
Yes.
And we know that they're paying them substandard wages, substandard working conditions, and they go to marginalize an already U.S. Marginalized workforce. That's the truth that you're not going to hear from individuals like that, or even some of the Republicans that are in the back pocket of the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, everyone can tell why I like Mark Morgan. Mark Morgan, thank you so much for coming on, as always, sir. Really nice to talk to you.
You bet. Thanks, Vince.
All right, it's 5:53, WMAL traffic and weather. All right, up next here on WMAL, the great one, Mark Levin. I'm back with you tomorrow. Have a great evening.